guys, JLamp Bio here. We're going to start our new unit with this video, starting to discuss evolution and natural selection. We're primarily going to be focusing this video on the origins of life. Now, this is a bit of a, I don't want to say controversial subject, but this is a subject in science in which we don't have as much information as we would like. The evidence for how life began is a bit complex and it's a little bit convoluted, but as we continue to work more and try to understand more about what happened in the past, we're able to see how things have changed over time, and more importantly, how life has changed since life began. So let's move forward with some of these ideas. By the end of this video, you should be able to understand some possible theories about early life on Earth. You should also be able to explain how simple life has changed over time to become more complex. A couple of key vocabulary terms for this video is the Miller-Urey experiment and the concept of endosymbiosis. So let's talk about some early life on Earth, and we're getting to a little bit more of the astronomy aspects of science here. The Earth is believed to be about 4.5 billion years old, with the universe being about 16 billion years old. The most universally accepted explanation as to how the universe began is the Big Bang Theory, where everything that is in existence started off as a single point. There was some type of explosion or bang, and the expansion of space occurred from that singular point. That is why we, as scientists, explain the concept that the universe is continually expanding and expanding at the speed of light. So how did essentially life begin on Earth? Where there are some key clues to help us understand how this may have came about, and one of which is the Miller-Urey experiment. And these are simulations of early Earth conditions. Now, how do we know what conditions were like in the early Earth? Well, we could take a look at a couple of different examples. We can use fossil records to help us understand what life was like. We can take samples from the Antarctic or the Arctic. Little tiny gas bubbles that are trapped in ice help us understand the composition of the Earth's atmosphere long time ago. And so what happened was that they took what they thought was an example of early Earth's atmosphere, and they inserted it into this apparatus you see here on the right. Electrical discharge and sparks were run through the gas to provide a little bit of energy, very similar to an unstable environment in Earth, where we would see lots of lightning and storms and things like that. So you can see here there's some boiling water in the gases that are in that chamber, and then there's also a condenser which takes those molecules that would be gas and cools them down. And what they found was that they actually collected a variety of amino acids, some precursors to nucleic acids, and other important organic compounds that are necessary for life. So this is one possible explanation of how carbon-based life forms and the components that are necessary for life may have been found on Earth. So how did things go from being simple to complex? Well, there's an idea that is known as endosymbiosis. That is the idea that eukaryotes developed from prokaryotes that formed a symbiotic relationship. So you can kind of see that there's different types of little bacteria here on the right-hand side. There's some ancestral prokaryote, some cell that exists and is living, and the small little bacteria here actually go into the prokaryote. Now, that is a symbiotic relationship. Both are actually going to benefit from this. The aerobic bacterium and the cyanobacterium are going to get protection, and they actually end up providing things like energy in the form of glucose or ATP generation for the cell. Now, the key evidence for this is that chloroplasts and mitochondria actually have their own DNA. And that DNA is different than the DNA that is actually found inside of the nucleus of the cell. So there is some evidence that actually points towards this as an explanation for how eukaryotic cells developed over billions and billions of years. Now, what were the atmospheric conditions like on early Earth? Well, in the early Earth, there was a lot more carbon dioxide than there is now, as well as water vapor, some methane, and pneumonia. Now, why is that carbon dioxide important? Well, if you think about early Earth, there were a lot more plants. Plants actually developed prior to mammals and all of the types of organisms that you know today. Well, as you remember from photosynthesis, carbon dioxide plays a very important role. So CO2 was actually utilized by the plants through photosynthesis and ended up developing 21% of atmospheric oxygen, which we have today, which is very important for multicellular life to exist. So that carbon dioxide that originated on early Earth eventually became converted into oxygen through the process of photosynthesis as early plants and small photosynthetic bacteria were able to produce the oxygen from the carbon dioxide. So there's a lot that's really going on with this, and I obviously don't do this justice, but keep in mind that the universe is believed to have been created by the Big Bang. Several experiments have helped to understand how complex life may have formed. By the way, that is the key word of the video, complex life, so make sure you write that down in your video notes. The early atmosphere is very different than the current atmosphere, and complex life evolved from much simpler forms. Now, there's a lot that's going on here, and there's a lot more information that could be discussed about this, more than what I would normally do for an introductory biology class. So if you're interested in this, take a look and read some books. This is JLand Bio. Hope you all have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.